If you are in the planner community, you may have already noticed that a lot of planner previews and pre-orders are coming up. It is admittedly so hard to tune them out, and I'm not even sure that I really want to, because I enjoy looking at different planners and I enjoy learning about how others are approaching something that could be really functional, but I've learned can also be a lot of fun. At the same time, it's hard to not feel overwhelmed with all of the choices out there, especially when you feel like your system is fine. I have had my eye on a lot of other brands in previous years, but I keep coming back to Hobonichi. And with Hobonichi 2026 previews coming up, I thought it would be a good time to sit down and just have a cozy catch up and chat about my thoughts on Hobonichi coming up. I have to say that this was very inspired by a wonderful video that I came across last weekend from Helena from Tiny Tiger Co. If you haven't already seen her video, she posted a very thorough and thought-provoking reflection on the Hobonichi situation last year, from the less than ideal shopping experience to their response to the paper issues and the little tweaks that they've made that have had a serious impact on people's planner plans for next year. So I highly recommend you check that video out in case you haven't already. And while I was watching Helena's video, it encouraged me to do a bit more reflecting before I start thinking about what I'm actually going to purchase for 2026. So I think it's really fun to think about all the different possibilities, especially if there are some planners out there that I've been interested in trying and haven't had a chance to yet. But before I actually start adding things to cart and finalizing my decisions, I think now is a really good time to do some reflecting. Of course, if you aren't a planner enthusiast and this doesn't appeal to you at all, then by all means, I totally understand if this feels ridiculously early, but this is something that I really enjoy and I am embracing the planner season. If that sounds like something you would be interested in, then I invite you to grab yourself a beverage, a snack, and something to keep you company and help you feel cozy while we hang out and chat. And today is going to be quite a chatty video. I hope you get comfy and I hope you enjoy. It's late morning right now, so I am just finishing up a cold coffee. And I don't have a snack because we're close enough to lunchtime that I'll be eating soon. I do have a bit of an agenda here just to keep me on track. The first thing that I wanted to quickly touch on is I had just a couple of pen updates that I wanted to share with you. So in a previous video, I talked about how I got this beautiful Hachimanjia Kubo Zakura pen that I have been absolutely loving. I waited for this pen for a really long time, and when I finally received it, I was kind of disappointed in the writing experience. And I think given how much this pen was and how long I waited for it, I'm not sure if I will be purchasing another special edition Sailor pen, because I think for the amount that this cost, I would have expected the writing experience to be amazing. So that was the first kind of disappointment, but I had an opportunity to meet with a Toronto-based nibmeister named Salman Khattak, and I was able to bring my Sailor Pro Gear Slim in a fine nib, and I got this pen in a fine nib as well. And I was able to ink them both up with my favorite Pilot Iroshizuku Konpeki, and he was able to diagnose the issue. He confirmed that there were some issues with the nib and that it was scratchy. What I was experiencing was like more of a scratchiness rather than the sailor feedback. And then because I had brought my other pen, I had said, I really want it to write like this. Like, this is what I think of when I think of sailor feedback. So he was actually able to tune this so that it would write pretty much exactly like my other pen. So now this is just a perfect writing experience, and I'm so happy that I was able to do all of this in person. I just wanted to share that experience, and I currently have this inked with one of my Pilot Iroshizuku ink combinations. So this one is 1 ounce of Kosu Mosu, half an ounce of Kuri Same, and half an ounce of Yamagori. So I've been slowly trying out all of my little ink experiments, and it's so interesting to see how similar they actually all look depending on which combination. But I'm really loving this. It writes so gloriously, and here are a couple more swatches of the different ink combinations that I have been trying. So I'm just slowly working my way through all of them. But I'm really happy with this pen now, and I just wanted to share that because I think in the beginning of my pen journey, if I didn't really enjoy how the pen wrote, I would sort of write off the pen, which sounds silly when I say it now, but I think part of me was thinking, if I'm paying this much for a pen, then it should write fine right out of the box, which I still think is true. Having said that, if it doesn't write the way that you're hoping for, then it's really good to know that you can tune a pen and sort of give it a second life and make it something exactly like you want. I actually showed him my Pilot Vanishing Point, which is the pen that I use every day for work. And I told him about my frustration with how it actually writes really well. Like, it's so smooth on paper, but it mutes a lot of my inks. And I've just been so confused as to why my extra fine Vanishing Point nib seems to write a darker line than my fine nib. And my medium nib also writes a darker line. So if I'm using the same ink, Konpeki, it's so weird to me that this one is so muted. And he was able to test it out and immediately said that my feed was dry. And I wish I had watched him tune it because I really don't remember. But now this thing writes so well. And I already love this pen, but I also had that complaint about the nib. I had thought about buying another nib unit. I had thought about buying other retractable pens to compare. I had thought about switching nibs with my extra fine, even though I actually prefer the feel of writing with the fine nib. And now he's fixed it, and I don't feel like I need any other retractable pens because the feed and the ink, like the ink flow, was the one thing that was bothering me, and now it's fixed. So I am thrilled, and I just love that now it feels like I have a new pen in my collection, but it's also like a familiar friend that I've loved for years now. So I just wanted to share that experience because I know it's really easy to add pens to your collection at a quick rate, and I'm guilty of falling in love with new pens and new styles and new colors. And I think there's a case for getting a different pen for a different nib experience, but I'm less inclined to get another Vanishing Point just for another colorway, because especially when it works as well as this one does. And while I was at Paper Plus Cloth, which is where Salman was taking his nib grinding or nib tuning appointments, they told me that they actually had the 2026 Hobonichi. There was an A6 Hon and a weeks to test. So I was very excited to test the paper. I didn't want to take up too much time in their store, so I did a couple of quick tests and they let me take a few photos. It was such a good experience because when they saw that I was that excited, they kind of matched my excitement, which is always wonderful when you connect with someone else who loves planners as much as you do. But they also saw that I wanted to take photos and they offered to clear a space right by their window just to let me get a better photo with sunlight. So big shout out to the Paper Plus Cloth staff. They're just so accommodating. They're so nice to talk to. And I just love that they allowed me to play around with the paper. So my initial thoughts were, I did not experience any bleed through. The thing that I noticed, which I haven't really seen other people talk about yet who have also tested the paper, is the Weeks paper felt very different to the A6 paper. So in my opinion, the paper felt very like toothy, not exactly like MD paper, but I don't know. It just felt a little more like rough. And I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing because sometimes I don't mind when paper serves as another opportunity to give you feedback, but it was just different. And I had my A6 with me at Paper Plus Cloth, but I didn't have my Weeks. So I wasn't able to compare directly, but the paper definitely felt different on the Weeks. The other thing that I noticed was when I wrote on the Weeks paper, especially, it did seem like some of my pens wrote more broadly. So even though there was no bleed through and I didn't really see any feathering, I did feel like it made my pens write more broadly. And that was something that I experienced in the 2025 paper. If I'm being honest, I was a little disappointed in the moment to see that. I'm glad that they fixed their bleed through issues, which I think are the most important issues. But I mean, I was using fine and extra fine pens, but I wonder how that experience would be if someone were using medium or broad nibs. It's hard to come to a conclusion when you've tested, one page of a book and it wasn't like a controlled experiment by any means. I would have loved to have tested it more, but I didn't want to take up too much time. And I think I read in Hobonichi's paper statement that there would be some variations in the paper depending on the production batch. So I really don't know if my experience is going to be the general experience, but it did make me pause a little. That was my first impressions of the 2026 paper test. I want to do a bit of a general Hobonichi reflection now. The reflection is very much inspired by Helena's video, and I will leave a link in my description below. When Helena laid it out, it really kind of brought to light like how many things have stacked upon each other, and how that would create overwhelmingly like a very frustrating experience with the Hobonichi brand. So I actually pulled out my cousin from last year because I had actually made a video last year reflecting on my experience of the shopping experience, because I was one of those people who very excitedly stayed up late, prepared all of my tabs, and was very excited to purchase everything on launch day. And part of the reason why I did that was because I had wanted to purchase the Mina Perhonen Peace collaboration because it was the first year that they were allowing people to buy the Mina Perhonen Peace covers without having to enter a lottery. So looking at this again really reminded me of the things that happened and what I would like to keep in mind as I head into 2026 purchasing. This is something that I typically like to do when I'm reflecting on an event that seems to have affected me, or if I'm feeling a certain way and I'm trying to understand what might have caused it or why I'm sort of in the state that I am. I usually just start with a what happened. And the idea here is ideally you will just state the facts. You will just state what happened without adding an interpretation or an emotion. So I would write things like, I got to my computer. When I tried to order, the server was busy. I refreshed, the cart cleared, things started selling out, the cart cleared. I checked Facebook, I re-added things to my cart, etc. So this really gives me a clear idea of what exactly happened in that moment. And then I start to add some details. So how was I feeling at these different stages? And then over here, I start to, I guess, process it a little more. So I kind of have something here around, well, what parts of this experience was I least proud of? And what can I accept about my behavior without judgment? So things that I was least proud of last year, I didn't like that I stayed up so late. I think I stayed up until almost 3 a.m, and that I will not be doing that again this year. I was panicking a lot and I was refreshing. So I was pretty much just sitting in front of my computer, like constantly refreshing. I was panicking and I wasn't really thinking straight and I was tired. And then I, at one point, started to think about just buying things anywhere. So apparently I wanted these Hobonichi products so badly. And when they were sold out on the website, I started looking at local Toronto businesses where I could, snap up some of the items that I wanted instead. So just a lot of impulsive behavior. I accepted that I am someone who is impulsive and sometimes I struggle with regulating my emotions. And that's just a part of who I am. So instead of trying to will them away, I can accept that and remember that they don't have to control my actions. So that next time I won't be as surprised when those feelings come up, and that I can remember that I don't have to let that rule my future behavior. And then I reminded myself of my values when it comes to decision making. So my values are that I like to be mindful. And in last year's situation, I didn't feel like I was grounded. I like to be responsible. And last year, I felt like I wasn't making the most financially responsible decisions. And then I really value self-care. And I just put sacrificing my sleep for this. So instead of realizing that I couldn't get what I wanted and just going to sleep, I stayed up several hours just to try to get what I wanted. And mind you, like, we're talking September for planners that we can't even move into until November at the earliest, or January 1st, which is more aligned with when I move into books. I don't typically move into my books in November, even though I think you can do that with the weeks, if I'm not mistaken. So things that helped me in the end was sticking to my list. So waiting until everything was back in stock instead of buying things at different places. Walking away and going to sleep. I did eventually give up and go to sleep, and it was the best thing ever. And then the fact that basic items selling out was what actually snapped me back into reality. Like, the weekly supplement sold out, and I thought, this is really abnormal. I don't see how this book would sell out. I could see how like a special limited edition cover would sell out, but not a Hobonichi weekly supplement. So seeing that gave me the clue that something was definitely not right, and that I was very confident that even if the weekly supplement sold out, that Hobonichi would be able to reprint them and restock them well before January 1st. So yeah, this really helped me ground myself into this year. I know we're only halfway through August, but I am feeling a lot more grounded about Hobonichi in general. I'm allowing myself to get excited about the previews that are coming out. I'm really loving reading the stories behind the artist and the apparel collaborations. I love being introduced to some of the new artists, like new to me artists. And I love playing the game of, could I use this book? Like, could I see myself using this book for an entire year? Because I tend to generally like a lot of things, but sometimes those things I don't necessarily think I'll like them for an entire year. So I think just reflecting on what happened has been a really grounding experience. And I just want to thank Helena again for inspiring me to take a second look, because I did actually kind of forget. And she also reminded me of the fact that this was just one experience out of many bad experiences. So once we received our books, we had the paper issues. Some people weren't able to buy Hobonichi directly from the site at the prices they thought they were, because 2 weeks after the launch, they adjusted all the prices for international customers. So there were just a lot of things, and it kind of got me reflecting on why I didn't feel as hesitant to consider Hobonichi for 2026. That kind of brings me to like what I learned about myself in 2025, and reflect on why I might choose Hobonichi and why I might not. So why I think I will use Hobonichi in 2026, despite the paper issues, despite the price increases and the perceived lack of accountability for the paper issues that we all experienced, is the main thing that I learned was, despite the paper issues, and that is a really big issue, and I can understand if that alone is enough of a reason for someone to be cautious of purchasing Hobonichi again, because even I was feeling pretty disappointed when I didn't absolutely love the paper test at Paper Plus Cloth. But at least for 2025, part of the reason why I stuck with Hobonichi was I had already invested all this money into Hobonichi, and I'm not really someone who purchases planners throughout the year. Typically, I budget for the one purchase, and admittedly, it can be kind of a larger purchase, but then I don't buy anything else for the rest of the year. So I already had purchased all these Hobonichi books. I had carefully thought about how I was going to use them all, so I wanted to use them. And despite the paper issues, I decided I would rather make adjustments to the pens I was using, the inks that I was using, in order to continue using Hobonichi for 2025, and then I would reevaluate for 2026. The biggest thing that I learned is that, well, one, I think I got a little bit lucky, and my A6 hasn't been as problematic as I think other people's papers have been. So I think I would have been a lot more frustrated if I had gotten a bad batch. So I think it was kind of luck on my side. I got 2 weeks last year. The paper quality is a little bit better in the Weeks Mega than it is in this beautiful Yumi Kitagishi Weeks. But overall, I just switched to my extra fine nibs, and I haven't really had any major issues. I have had a few inks in here where the bleed, where the the ghosting is quite pronounced, and where there is a bit of bleed through. I don't know if you can see that. So it wasn't perfect, but it was, to me, it wasn't enough to quit using the book. And what I realized was the paper was just one factor for why I choose Hobonichi, and it isn't the largest factor, because I think if it were the largest factor, then I wouldn't have continued using it. I don't think we should force ourselves to use things if it's going to make us miserable every day. So what I think I value more about Hobonichi in general is I really love their artist collabs. I would have never discovered all of this whimsical, cute art if not for Hobonichi. It's not that Hobonichi is the only way that I might discover illustrations like this, but it's definitely one of the best ways that I've been able to discover new illustrators and artists. So I love the stories they tell. I mean, maybe they're just really good at marketing, but I love the stories they tell, and I love the thought that goes into creating a whole collection with these artists. I really love their approachable and easy to use format. So whether it's the cousin or whether it's the weeks or the A6, using this is so much more enjoyable than a blank notebook. It's almost like they've started the page for you, so I can just go in there and use it. So it's a very functional and approachable layout, and I enjoy them in all sizes. This is kind of similar to the artist collabs, but I really love that it's a very like youthful and playful design. So, I mean, this is a little more plain, but I love these like whimsical, youthful designs. They just bring a smile to my face, and they add so much personality. And throughout the year, I really enjoy just seeing the cover, and it makes me want to pick up the book, and it really makes me want to use it. I like that it's 1 year and one book. So typically when it comes to planning, I really prefer to just have one book as opposed to two books. I know that's not the case for everybody, but that's my preference. I also like that it's functional. I love the way that I've been able to tailor this A6 for my needs from a planning perspective. And then I have really loved using the Hobonichi weeks for health and wellness. And I've also used it for meal planning, so I think it's very versatile. And generally speaking, it's fountain pen friendly paper. Forgot to put pen there. So obviously 2025 aside, with the issues, one could argue that it's not fountain pen friendly, but I guess I'm willing to give them one more chance for 2026 because they have addressed the paper issues, even if some might think it's a bit too late. There are other factors that have always been present and consistently present through 2025. Having said that, knowing that these are the things I love, I think you could be creative and take some of these factors and apply them to other brands. For example, if you really like a youthful, playful design, I've seen some people in the community decorating their planner covers full of stickers and other ephemera that they love, so they can really customize the cover and make it perfect for them. So in that case, I think it may not matter what cover you use, because if you get a plain cover, you can turn it into anything that you want. So I think that doesn't have to be necessarily the deciding criteria between Hobonichi and maybe a plain notebook. And with the artist collabs, I've seen a lot of people also buy the Hobonichi covers and then using another notebook brand of their choice. I know 2026 is going to be different for US customers, where Hobonichi is now making it so that you have to buy the book along with the cover. In general, you can still enjoy the artist collab, but you don't necessarily have to use the book, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So these are the reasons why I like it, but I think knowing this, you can be creative and flexible and still come up with other options if you're not wanting to use the Hobonichi book itself. Why I might choose another brand. So price comes to mind. I still don't know how much Hobonichi is going to cost this year. I know that it is getting more expensive each year, and I fully expect everything to be even more expensive this year. So depending on how much everything is once they release the full lineup. Also, I think there's a really great opportunity to explore and support smaller or local planner brands. Because I'm located in Canada, I know that there's Faded Chronicle, there's Aura Estelle, and Nicole Josephine. These are 3 brands that I was eyeing last year, and in the end, I chose to stick with Hobonichi and Traveler's Company. So I've been eyeing their planner previews, and I'm open to the potential of investing in one of their planner systems. I am only a little bit hesitant because I'm so attuned to the Hobonichi A6, and some of these layouts are a little more structured, and I think sometimes that can be good, but I find that I really enjoy the sweet spot of having just enough structure, like a dated daily page, but not too much structure where there's almost only one way that you can use the pages. I think it's great that there are some options in Canada. And I know for the US, there's a lot of amazing options like Wonderland 222, Sterling Ink, Just Scribble, just to name a few. So I know there are a lot of options out there. I mean, I'm pretty happy with the A6, the TN Standard, and the A5 options, but it's nice that other brands can also offer more options apart from just A6, A5. For example, Nicole Josephine's Forest Planner is a B6 size. So if A5 feels too big, but A6 is too small, B6 is a really nice compromise there. So it's cool that there are other options. And then the one thing that would probably get me to leave Hobonichi is if I could find an A6 that is structured pretty much exactly like this, but in cream paper. So I have yet to find that. The only one that I have my eye on right now is the Midori Hibino, but it's like 2 pages per day, which feels like a lot of space. But it is another one that I am considering because I love the cream paper. I'm really fascinated by the tiny grid. And currently I use my A5 for planning, and then I use my cousin as sort of like a notebook for when I need more space. And if I'm taking notes on, say, like an article that I'm reading. So I'm not hating the idea of experimenting with combining these two into the Hibino, but the Hibino is a thick book, so I'm not sure. But if anyone knows of like a dated A6 book that is cream paper, very similar to the Hobonichi, then let me know, because I might be in the minority for loving cream paper, but I would love to have a cream paper planner. Last, I just wanted to spend a little bit of time getting excited about the Hobonichi 2026 previews. I have no idea if I'm going to buy any of these, and I'm not going to make any decisions now, but I just wanted to talk about them because I am loving these daily previews. So I think last time we caught up, I think we had just finished seeing Up to the Moomin collab. So since then, they have announced the Mina Perhonen collab, the One Piece magazine, the Kyohei Sakaguchi, Tamagotchi Mother 4 apparel collabs, the Yumi Kitagishi, and the 100% Orange. I will say that I think my favorites so far are the Kyohei Sakaguchi. I loved their week's offering, and the apparel collabs, the toe light, so the really big, beautiful floral, and also their notebook cover. I'm very curious to see if that notebook cover is like a fabric cover with flowers painted on it or if it's a polyester cover. And then I did really like the Poder A6 zip. I really liked the cover last year, but I wasn't that excited about the black color variant. And now that they've come out with a brown, I am very intrigued. I think that would fit my A6, but if I did use a Hobonichi, I think this cover would also fit it. So I'm curious to see how much it costs, and if I were to get that would definitely be a splurge, but that caught my eye. I loved the Yumi Kitagishi, but I don't think anything is going to capture my heart as much as this beautiful wallpaper weeks. Yeah, I don't know. This is just the most beautiful cover, and I think it's the black background it's that contrast that I'm not really loving. So I don't think I'm going to be getting any of the Yumi Kitagishi books, but some of the accessories really caught my eyes. And then the 100% orange is sort of that wild card to me where my initial reaction was no. And then the more I looked at it, the more I was like, this could be a contender because I love how bright and bold it is. I love how playful and youthful it is. I think I'm just really attracted to youthful, bright designs because I tend to be quite neutral in a lot of the things that I buy, but every so often I just really like a pop of color or something that just makes me smile, like instantly smile. And if I do get a week's next year, it's going to be as a health and wellness tracker if I decide to move that back into a week's, or it's going to be like a media, kind of like a media journal. I want something fun for that. I'm excited to see what else they announce, but so far the 100% orange is like the squirrels. They're just so cute. It reminds me of the Love It Panda weeks that I had in 2023, and that week's brought me so much joy. I just loved opening it up and using it every day, and I have also really loved this beautiful weeks. We still have a few more days of previews, so I'm really excited to see what else they announce. I would love to see more pencil boards because that's usually what I buy when I decide not to invest in a cover. And I'm really into all the stationery accessories they're offering this year. So I feel like there's a few things from the collections that I would be interested in getting. And I'm also wondering if they're going to release a few more Hone A6s because there were a few covers I was really close to getting, but I decided to stick with the plain A6. And I was thinking for next year, so far all I'm planning on getting is a week's and an A6. So I thought it might be fun to get a fun cover instead. But if they're not offering that many, then I might just stick with the A6 book. So I'm kind of hoping that they show a few more Hone options, but we still have a few more days, so I guess we'll find out. All right, well, I think that's everything that I wanted to catch up with you on today. If you're still here, I'm curious to hear how you're feeling about 2026 planner season. What are your thoughts on the Hobonichi previews? Are you planning on going with Hobonichi for 2026, or will you be exploring another brand? And if you're exploring another brand, please share it in the comments because I think it would be great to raise some more awareness about some of the other brands out there because there are a lot of options, and I think increasingly there are even more local options. So if buying from Japan is not in the budget, I think it'll be good to get really excited about local brands as well. So I can really only speak to the Canadian brands because that's what I've been paying attention to. But wherever you are, feel free to share where you're located and if there are any local options that you could recommend to all of us as well. If you're still here, thank you so much for hanging out with me. I hope you're doing well, and I'll see you soon in the next video. Bye!